Then he calmly gets up, without saying a word, pulls out 2 long-nosed .38 revolvers and starts blasting away at the 4 men in suits at the bar that he was instructed to kill. Okay, everybody, this is Mooney-Dashcam. Tonight we're in Manhattan. We're going to be talking about some murders that came as revenge after the famous Joe Gallo murder at Umberto's Clam House. If you want to check that video out, it'll be in the description. Did a whole in-depth video on that. But a few months later, this murder took place, and it was actually also at a restaurant, and it was a case of mistaken identity. We're going to go to the restaurant where it happened, so let's flip this around and get into it. This incident happened in 1972. The address of the restaurant that we're going to is 320 East 79th Street. Like I said, we're in Manhattan. That is Central Park to our right now. We're on 5th Avenue, the famous 5th Avenue. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, at mooney-dashcam. I post on there pretty much every single day. Any crime scene photos that can't go on YouTube end up on the Instagram, so check that out. Also, don't forget to leave suggestions for future videos in the comments. I very much appreciate that. I get a lot of inspiration that way. Lastly, hit the notification bell so you guys can see exactly when I post a new video. Okay, let's get into this murder. A little bit of backstory on the Joe Gallo murders. After Jerome Johnson shot Joe Colombo, paralyzing him until his death years later, the incident was blamed on Joe Gallo since he became close with him in prison, even though authorities now believe that Jerome Johnson acted alone after they questioned Joe Gallo. Either way, this led to the very famous murder of Joe Gallo at Umberto's Clam House in Little Italy. There was a giant shootout that took place, resulting in Joe Gallo stumbling outside of the restaurant and dying in the middle of the street. One of the more famous mob murders that went on. Still kind of unsolved. It's pretty unclear who pulled it off and how it exactly went down, but very big case that if anyone's into the mob, they pretty much know about that story. This leads into the incident 4 months later. A Gallo loyalist, because after this, the Colombo family and the Gallos were warring one of the Colombo wars. The loyalist was suspected to be Robert Dangiovi. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. His street name was Bobby Darrow. How you got that from that, I have no idea. But he was following around Colombo heavyweights all day on August 11th, 1972. He last spotted them at the bar at Neapolitan Noodle. That is the name of the restaurant where this went down. They were all dressed in nice suits, as these guys normally do, especially back then. The crew that was there that night was acting boss Alley Boy Persico, Carmine Persico's brother. I believe Carmine was already in trouble at that point. Also, Joe Yacovelli, I could be pronouncing that completely wrong, but he was the consigliere at the time. He actually personally okayed the hit of Gallo, so he was high on the list of people that the brother, Albert Gallo, the brother of Joe Gallo, wanted killed. Obviously, he was out for revenge. This whole situation is all about revenge, as pretty much most mob situations are. Then you have Gennaro Langella, also known as Jerry Lang. He was Alley Boy's bodyguard. And then Charles Pandrella, also known as Charlie the Moose. Also, little Alley Boy Persico, Carmine's son, was said to be there. It's a little bit unclear which one of these men wasn't there, because they talk about there only being 4 members of the Colombos there. Some of the descriptions exclude little Alley Boy Persico from the situation. Some exclude the consigliere. I'm not exactly sure who was there. Obviously, I was not there to double check with everyone. It's said that 4 people were there, maybe 5 were there. It was a very long time ago. Who knows exactly how well this was documented. Now, it's speculated that they chose this place, Neapolitan Noodle, because it was a halfway basement restaurant with a large green and white awning pretty much covering any direct sight lines into the restaurant, and they were in a war, so they thought about this kind of stuff. So after Bobby Darrow confirmed these guys were in the restaurant, he turns around and leaves, and that info is passed on to a hitman suspected to be from Las Vegas or just the West Coast. So this guy doesn't personally know the men. He enters the bar restaurant around 9:25 p.m. The hitman is described as a middle-aged 5'7" man, bulky, wearing sunglasses, also wearing a black shoulder-length wig. He sits down at the bar, slaps down a $10 bill, and orders a scotch and water. Alright, I came by before. There's a beautiful fire hydrant right here. Directly to the right is where this all went down. I'm gonna tuck myself in and then I'll hop out. Alright, transport yourself back to 1972. And here is where this all went down. This building right here with the steps, right behind these steps is this half basement. Right now it is the permanent mission of the Republic of Albania to the United States. It's like an Albanian clubhouse type thing. I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to say it's the wrong thing, but that's what it says on the plaque. So you have this half basement restaurant with an awning above, so you really can't see inside. Shot here. So the hitman sits in there and sips on his drink for about 5 minutes. Then he calmly gets up without saying a word, pulls out 2 long-nosed .38 revolvers, and starts blasting away at the 4 men in suits at the bar that he was instructed to kill. He kills 2 of the men and wounds the other 2. In the panic, he's able to slip out, and a bus driver said that he saw him running, get into a brown Chevy sedan, and speed away. Now, little did the hitman know, in between the time that Bobby left Neapolitan Noodle and the hitman entered, the Colombo men were moved from the bar and sat down at a table in the back. The 4 men that replaced them happened to be wearing suits. They were businessmen in the kosher meat business. They were all there celebrating the engagement of one of their daughters to the manager of the restaurant. I only read that in one spot that the guy was the manager of the restaurant, so take that with a grain of salt. And they were there with their wives. Let's hop back into the truck. We'll do the rest of the story from the truck. Say hi to it, by the way. Don't forget it. Give it the respect it deserves. So I assume they got a shooter from Las Vegas to separate themselves from these murders as to not further the war in any type of way. But that seemed to backfire because since he wasn't from around here, he couldn't correctly ID the people that he had to kill. So the men he killed were 40-year-old Sheldon Epstein, 48-year-old Max Tekelch, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. One from New Rochelle, the other one from Long Island. One of the wounded men was 55-year-old Jack Forum from Brooklyn. He was released from the hospital after treatment of a gunshot wound to the leg. The other wounded person was 48-year-old Leon Schneider from Long Island, who was in critical condition at the hospital. He had to get emergency surgery to treat the 4 bullet wounds that he had. I believe he lived. That's the most information I have on him. Now, I guess having a hitman come from Vegas worked out in their favor in only one way. The guy was never caught, so nobody was charged in these murders. But August 15th, little Alley Boy was arrested at his family's farm in upstate New York and charged with unlawfully receiving firearms in interstate commerce. Jerry Lang got the same charges. Persico's bail was set at $100,000. He posted bail right away after complaining that it was so high, and he got out. He was free again. Then, while little Alley Boy was in court over the situation, he gets hit with a subpoena to appear in front of a grand jury to investigate his criminal activity. I don't think that was a coincidence that days after all this happened, he gets hit with a bunch of charges. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I think that is everything I have to tell you about this situation. If I got anything wrong, of course, leave it in the comments, but I know I don't have to tell you guys that. You will do it anyway, which I do appreciate. And I'll see you in the next one.